Bases dropped. We're jumping in quickly here on SDH. We've got a guest at 9:15, Dylan Butler of Major League Soccer. We're going to talk about the week in MLS. I know there is something on everybody's mind, so John, waste no time. Get into Twitter. What's up?
All right, we got two on the article from Felipe this morning. First one is from Austin.
The article at The Athletic from Felipe Cardenas that was posted about 45 minutes ago. If you haven't seen it, because not everybody has, that's where it is, and I'm sure it's going to be a big talking point for a little while.
Yeah. The header from Felipe as the article was introduced. Point 1 from Felipe: Marcelo Bielsa's ultimatum to Atlanta United's front office. Point 2, Tata Martino and Carlos Bocanegra's, quote, terrible relationship, end quote. Point 3, De Boer in the dark on signings. The leader into the article from Felipe says, on the decisions that propelled the club and the fractured relationships that changed its course. Austin at Bring In DeBeef on Twitter. Whoa, this is not a good look for Atlanta United front office, and specifically Carlos. If he really did ghost Bielsa, that's incredibly unprofessional.
Well, you're hearing one side of it right now, first off. I mean, that's just how it is. There's a lot to unpack in this article, and I'm sure people are unpacking it right now and going through it. It is coming from one side of the perspective. Darren Eales did go on the record and responded to questions in it. So you have that angle of it. But, yeah, you don't have the whole story here from both sides, and that's going to be part of this. It's also very difficult to run a high-level club, and you're going to make decisions that people disagree with and people under you disagree with. That's going to happen. I think when you get into the soap opera aspect of it, maybe that gets washed away from time to time. But, yeah, you're going to make people angry. Again, as I've said many times about Atlanta United, what they've done in a launch is almost impossible to do. So, yes, you can point to this and this and this in this article, but you can also point to trophy, quality play, seasons of success, and that's part of the story too. That doesn't get washed away on this. That's what's very complicated about all of this. And look, people are going to be in their feelings, especially because there's been a narrative that I said I think is unfair about the way the team is playing right now, and people are lumping everything into it, decisions from 2015 to decisions today, and it's a little dangerous to lump it all into one big gumbo because I think some of those ingredients have expired. What else we got?
The other one on Twitter dealing with the article comes from Michael Head. Not sure what to make of Felipe's article. I was unaware that Eales and Carlos interviewed Bielsa for the first head coach.
Yep.
Wonder if we would have.
Sorry, I'd never heard that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I had neither. Wonder if we would have been as successful initially. Also, what would have been the lasting effect if he would have been hired? Not sure he's suited for MLS.
I don't think he's suited for MLS. That's not a new take. I've had these conversations with Ricardo Montoya, former coworker, managed the Silverbacks in Eric Winalda's stead, managing in the first division in El Salvador right now. Done a lot of scouting for MLS teams, including Atlanta United in the early days. And way before Atlanta United existed, we had conversations about Bielsa. That was where I learned about Bielsa. And I always said that I didn't think Bielsa would fit with U.S. Soccer because of the amount of control he wants, and I didn't think he would fit in an MLS team because of the amount of control that he wants. That's just very difficult to make happen. We've talked about it over the last couple of years. I love Bielsa as a manager, as a coaching theory. I love how he sees the game. I do think it's not a fit for everybody. I don't think Bielsa would work with a Liverpool or a Manchester City or a Barcelona or a Real Madrid, a top team that is trying to win trophies every year and will sacrifice style to get there. I don't think he'd fit there. Would he fit in Atlanta United, taking the MLS rules and things away from it? That's still a question. But if you're going to give somebody complete control of roster acquisition and player acquisition, you have to have somebody who understands the way MLS works. Like it or not, that's a fact. Peter Vermes can do this because he understands the league. There's not many others who can because of that. You have to navigate, like, we have this much cap space. We have this much allocation money. We need to save allocation money here to buy this person down to fit under the cap. You have to be able to navigate all of these different things. Coaches, managers generally don't do that. And in MLS, I think they do it even less. So I love Bielsa as a manager. He's not a fit for everybody. That's why Leeds, which he's been there for almost 3 years now. Is that right?
Yeah.
He's finishing year 3?
If he starts next year, it'll be his 4th.
Okay, he's finishing year 3. That's the longest he's been anywhere in his career. Again, I love what he does on the field. I love the way he sees the game. But he doesn't stay places very long. It's very difficult to work with him. I was shocked that they talked to him. I was absolutely shocked that they talked to him. It's really interesting. I mean, it's a really interesting bit of fan fiction as to what that would look like. I don't think it would go well because I think he would get frustrated with the MLS rules. And I think he'd struggle to put together a team within that construct because it's difficult. You're going to have a lot of domestic players. He doesn't know the domestic base. He would have had to have started from scratch, and he could have. Look, he's a brilliant guy. But man, that's a lot of risk. Now, I don't know how it was handled. Again, you're getting that part of it from one side. And I don't know who would have given that information, but I don't know how that was handled. But no, I don't think he was the right fit. I think they got the right hire to start the team with somebody who is Bielsa-like, but also not Marcelo Bielsa, and somebody who is more pragmatic and understands that way has a lot of limitations. That's why Tata Martino has done some different things in his career than Marcelo Bielsa.
Yeah, the last 5 jobs that Marcelo Bielsa has had, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 1 year, and Leeds, and that's where we are.
And again, he's brilliant. He's brilliant as a manager. I don't know if he fits every club. Leeds was in the championship and needed somebody to have that vision. And even at Leeds, I mean, Victor Orta is a big figure. He's not sitting in the background waiting for Marcelo to tell him what to do, right?
No.
You know, I don't get that sense at all. I don't think the owner's doing the same thing. I think they're working together. Could that have happened here? Maybe. Maybe it could have happened over time. But I don't think Bielsa would have lasted very long because he hasn't generally outside of Leeds. Maybe Leeds was the perfect fit for him. And that's good. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what it does is that when you're in Leeds in the championship, it gives you that opportunity to build in a way that with the owner, if you caught the series on Amazon where the Radrizzani and Victor Orta, and you get that opportunity to build something and build it into where Leeds is now. And now you wonder what the next steps are for Leeds in Marcelo Bielsa's mind and how much longer he will stay.
Yeah, again, he's managed the most games in his career at Leeds. I mean, how much longer he stays, sounds like he's going to do another year, which is great. Do they go further? Do they get into Europe? That's the question. But that's not what we're talking about this morning, to be honest. So what else do we have on Twitter?
We're caught up on that particular topic on Twitter.
You sure nobody else has tweeted about it? You sure nobody else has tweeted about it since you started talking?
Nope,
okay.
Just scanned.
Okay, just checking. If you have a question on the Twitch pitch, I will take it quickly because we've got a guest again at 9:15, Dylan Butler of Mlsoccer.com. We're going to get into the last week of MLS. I don't know if Dylan's had a chance to read the article. Maybe he'll have a comment on it. I don't know. We will see what's up with that. I'm kind of filling time for a minute because this was unexpected this morning. Look, you get big figures with big opinions in big clubs. You know, that's why people like to watch those Amazon series, right? That's why you like Jose Mourinho at Spurs. I'm sure there will be, well, there's been stories like this already. I'm sure there will be more. There's a lot of different aspects of this that are going to get people in a tizzy. And look, that's to be expected. I hope people get in a tizzy, if they do, for the right reasons, because this is not Minnesota, for example, who has had the same manager from day one, who went for a low bar, who maybe needed to shake things up more, and hasn't. LAFC hasn't shaken things up. They haven't. They haven't had the same success. There's no perfect blueprint here. And I think Darren said it in the article, and it stood out to me about friction can be good. I'm paraphrasing. That's not his exact quote. But you have friction at I think, a fully functioning club between the manager who wants to win and wants to win today. For example, the situation with Miguel Almirón's injury going into the playoffs. Tata Martino was already out the door. He wasn't coming back. He wanted to win today. You have to have somebody who provides that friction. You have to have somebody who says, we have to think about the long-term health of the club as well. That's the friction that top clubs have. That can drive things forward. It can also ground things to a halt. I don't think that's happened here. It can drive things forward. It is a very important element of driving things forward, in my opinion. Because if you're only short-termism, it's difficult. If you're only long-termism, it's difficult. You need both to get there. You need both to get there. And that's what has been here. And again, you have had success. I think that's the number one caveat to this, as we're about to get Dylan Butler on the line from Mlsoccer.com, is for whatever drama, soap opera, whatever you want to call it, that is there, that is talked about in this article, you have had success on the field and success off the field. So it hasn't been bad. People are going to say it could have been better. Nobody's been better than this in modern times in MLS. So how much better could it have been? That's the thing. There's no guarantees. We'll get into more of it. I know we will. I know everybody will have takes. So that's just where I am after quickly reading this morning. Let's get Dylan Butler on. Dylan was booked yesterday. He's always booked on Tuesdays, but he was booked for this time slot yesterday. So forgive Dylan for jumping into whatever this is going to end up being, because he's here to talk MLS, and we will get into MLS with him right about now, if Mateo can get him up on the line, as we are dialing out to Dylan Butler. We need hold music for next time. We'll work on that.
Yeah.
One of these days we will get to that point. Dylan joining us from Mlsoccer.com. Dylan Butler, how are you?
Good, boys. How are you?
Doing good. A little bit of interesting things in the media this morning that's got everybody in a tizzy. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Fill me in.
See, you haven't. Good. So we won't grill you on it, because I'm sure it's going to be talked about all over the place. Felipe Cárdenas at The Athletic with an article about Atlanta United and a lot of behind-the-scenes things. So that's going to be a big topic the rest of the show.
Listen, Felipe's dialed in, man. So he's got his finger on the pulse. That's for sure. So.
Yep.
You've got me intrigued. It's percolating now.
Well, you've got some reading to do after we're done. But we do have some things to talk about from the last weekend in MLS. When I sent you a message last night, I threw a couple teams at you that I was intrigued by in this last week. I want to start with the maybe biggest problem team at the moment in Minnesota, who made it worse after I thought a start that should put Adrian Heath on the hot seat. They blew a 2-0 lead and lost 3-2 to Colorado. What is going on in Minnesota from what you can see?
Yeah, so, you guys, a couple of weeks ago, you asked me about, coaches on the hot seat, and I thought it was too early for that. I don't think it's too early anymore. No. And I think Adrian Heath is almost, it's kind of like Orlando level issues in his later days here, it seems like, in Orlando. I listen, it's certainly a confidence problem. It feels like, look, they came out, they played great, those opening 45, two goals, a terrific one by Reynoso, and you figure they're on their way, right? And then as soon as they got a little bit of adversity, it felt like they just crumbled, like the first punch in the mouth, and they were just on the floor and they couldn't respond. And I thought even, Heath's, and we love Adrian Heath, right? Because he's so animated in his post-game comments. I was going to say so truthful, but sometimes I'm not sure that whole loons underdog, no one believes in us kind of thing. I thought that got tired pretty quick, but he subs out. He brings out an extra defender for Reynoso, brings in Boxall, right? Like in a game where now he's hoping he could hold on to 1 point. And he was honest after the game. He said, I thought we'd lose the game at that point. And they did, certainly, right? And listen, you've got a gorgeous stadium there. You were inches away from reaching the cup a year ago. This has to be better. It's no longer, look, reinforcements are coming. Some of them are already here, right? Like they've got to turn it around. And we've on Mlsoccer.com put out about how difficult it is, right, for teams that start 0-3 and now 0-4 to reach the postseason. No one's done it in a year at 0-4 in like a regular year, right? Like last year obviously was a different year, a pandemic year. You expand the playoff field, but this isn't like a Seattle, slow start, wake up late, and all of a sudden you pour it on in the second half. This is troubling times for a team that some people had picked as kind of like that dark horse MLS Cup winner this year. Not a good start. And it's the mentality is the problem, right? I think if you were banged up, or if you were saying, look, we've got a window in the summer, we're bringing in 3-4 guys, fine. But this is like a mentality thing, and that's a problem. I mean, they need 3 points in the worst way tomorrow night against Vancouver.
So then let me present to you in this particular segment the LA Galaxy when it comes to folks that we figured that this year was going to be a building year. And yes, they're building toward what Greg Vanney wants them to do. We figured next year would be the year where they're chasing after things. But Jason, go ahead and mute your headphones for the next 2 words. El Trafico ended up.
Not a fan, bro. I love El Trafico.
No, we need a better name.
All right, it's a sore point. It's a sore point.
Yeah, that thing. Oh man. Anyway.
But no, but for the next 2 words, Jason, mute again. El Trafico ends up being the Galaxy's and puts LAFC once again, searching for points when a lot of folks going into that one thought that, that one should be theirs.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting road, right? We saw the opening salvo, if you will, from Vanney, and we talked about that, and Chicharito having his day, and then they did it against the Red Bulls, and a bit of a hiccup after that, but against Seattle. But look, we could talk about them, but Seattle, I think, proving certainly through 4 games the best team in the league. I think head and shoulders, but a great response, a terrific one by the Galaxy. My favorite moment of this match was it wasn't the Chicharito goal. It was the assist. Mm-hmm. I mean, the turn that he makes to create that little sliver of space, and then the ball that he plays across the box. He had 2 runners, right? Either of those guys could have buried it. And Jonah Dos Santos, who, look, he's not a guy. He's not there to score goals, but he's been banged up, and then I think he had some collateral damage just with his brother Gio when he was here, and that kind of was a bust, and he was always banged up, and Jonah's been injured. So feel great for him. Just, he needed a performance in a big way, not necessarily a goal, but a performance in a big way. And you could see how much it meant to him as well. And look, LAFC still not 100%. Will we ever see that Chicharito Vela matchup? I certainly hope so. But yeah, listen, Vanny's got them on 9 points. Right now tied with San Jose. I chuckle because I didn't see that happening necessarily with San Jose. We could talk about those guys, but listen, it's been great early going for Vanny, and kudos to him. I think, again, I've always had him in high regards as a head coach, and I think he's proving it now with the second team, right? Like, maybe he didn't get the credit because of the talent level that he had at Toronto. And we spoke about this on our previous show, but I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, and I think he's showing that now with the Galaxy team. As you guys said, maybe this was supposed to be a rebuild for them, and they're proving in the early goings to be one of the top teams in the West.
Yeah, they're a little bit further ahead of where I thought Vanny would have them, and we'll see where they end up finishing, and they're probably going to make some more moves before we even get through the summer window. So I want to get into two other teams that played Friday night that we didn't really have near the top of the West. Both are in playoff spots right now, super early. RSL loses their first one of the season. San Jose wins. They're on 9 points. San Jose was looking at different points this offseason like Matias Almeida was going to leave. He was linked to about every job in this hemisphere. Are they for real, or are they the same Quakes that we've seen where it's a lot of ups and downs? What are you taking away from them right now?
I'm not buying them just yet, just because, Jason, of that point that you make, right? Because we've seen such a roller coaster from them where they'll reel off 3 or 4 great games and they'll tank for another 8, and now Almeida's on the hot seat, and then they turn it around. Like last year was so crazy, right? Like the Goonies were back, these late game performances, and I do like a few things though from them. Look, clearly Chris Wondolowski is not a 90-minute player, right? But he doesn't have to be anymore. Mm-hmm. You've got Cade Cowell, just, the 17-year-old just running around like a 17-year-old does. He could take up all those miles. He could take up all that endurance. And then you bring in the greatest goal scorer in the league's history as a super sub. I mean, how cool is that? And then he just does Wando things that just you continue to shake your head. At his age, like 37, right? 38.
72
it feels like
years old.
Dude, he can go on. I mean, in this kind of role, right? You throw him out there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, he'll get his walker on to the fourth official and toss it to the side and run out there and score goals. That's the way that he scores goals too. He doesn't have to run around, right? He's just such a poacher in the box. The space that he can create and finish from is amazing. Also, another factor, and it's certainly a guy you guys know well there, you got to give a lot of credit to Eric Remedi, right? Because he comes in as kind of, he gets tossed aside at Atlanta, then, he's supposed to be like a backup to Judson while he's injured. And I don't know, man, like, I think he's winning a job in that spot. Judson's still out, but he's been fantastic, Remedi, and you get him next to Ewell, and the Quakes are fun. I mean, one thing that I would say to Atlanta area fans and just MLS fans in the East in general, listen, get some coffee, get some Red Bull, whatever you got to do, but MLS After Dark is lit, man. Like, this is for real. You will see stuff every week. It'll be a banger. It'll be something. It's just absolutely wild. MLS After Dark is the place to be.
So then, how many times have you watched the Rubio Rubin goal on repeat?
I was fortunate to see it live, and you can't stop watching it. It's spectacular. Like I tweeted at one point too. I was like, look, I followed this league from the beginning, and there's been great goals, and I don't think that we've seen bangers like we've seen, like in the first 4 weeks, maybe in a full year. I mean, every week you're like, that's a goal of the year, and then like someone's like, hold my beer, hang on, and then like, this is a goal of the year. Like, it's amazing. Nani or Barco and now Rubin and Salt Lake too. They're a wild bunch as well. Like, I mean, who knows Bobby Wood's coming in too. I didn't love the signings, but to be honest, they're in that weird transition area too, with maybe not really being able to spend the money that they want. A new owner is going to be coming in, and smaller market, but again, they're part of that. They're part of that MLS After Dark with the Colorados and the Vancouvers and San Jose. It's so much fun.
So let's talk about two teams in the East that maybe a result surprised some people, with Nashville getting the win over New England. Nashville is scoring more goals this season. They had the one scoreless draw with Miami. Outside of that, they're putting up 2 a game. Defensively, they've been a little shakier at times before this one. What's your take on Gary Smith's team?
Yeah, so I like coaches that can change their tactics just sort of based on what's going on, right? Like some coaches have had success with kind of a static look. You look at like a Peter Vermees where you always know they're going to line up in a 4-3-3, right? But we've now seen Gary Smith kind of change that, and he did it against New England, where they would go 4-2-3-1. He went 4-4-2. He got MLS lifers, the well-traveled Dom Badji and CJ Sapong up front together, and it proved to be a masterclass of a move, because those guys, while they maybe struggle on the run of play, they're terrific at set pieces, and that's been the kind of bugaboo for New England, right? Defending set pieces. So that's where they get their first goal, and a guy that I saw very closely, and I would see him train weekly as well when he was with the Red Bulls, Alex Muyl. Listen, this is another one of like most underrated in MLS, like a best 11 of underrated players. He's there because when he was in New York, I always kind of like lamented, look, he's a winger, right? So a lot of fans don't necessarily understand what he brings, because he's not going to be the guy who's going to bring the techers, and he's not going to mega guy, and he's not going to score from 40 yards out. But he runs and he covers more distance than anybody in MLS. And he's done that regularly for like years now. That kind of work, the off the ball work, the tracking down, the closing space, certainly in a pressing system like Red Bulls, but he did it again here as well. He scores a goal, and that's always sort of like gravy for him. But his value or his better work is when he gets inverted on the left wing, and then he's able to neutralize Carlos Gil, right? Which obviously so much of what the Revs want to do runs through Gil. So I think huge credit to Muyl. I think he's found a really good spot in Nashville, and they're finding it hard too, obviously, just because of that work rate, to keep him out of the lineup. So, I think early days, the identity of Nashville clearly was, look, let's just be really stout defensively while we figure things out the rest of the way, and I think we're seeing the maturation of Nashville, just again formationally and in the attack and different ways. So yeah, they'll concede a little bit more, but they're looking like certainly a better, more well-rounded team these days.
Okay, you were reading my mind this weekend, Dylan, because in our watch-along thread on our subscriber Discord, I said when Ilie scored that he was one of the most underrated players in the league. And then the topic came up was most underrated 11 in the league. I did not have Alex Muyl. That's a really good shout, though. I did not have him in mind. I had Florian Velo as a Red Bulls rep in there. I'll give you mine.
Yeah, that's a good call too with Velo.
I like
he's been
Velo.
banged up, I
know.
Poor kid. I mean, the knee injuries, but he's class. When he's
like
healthy
Velo.
and he's on the ball.
I'll give you mine. This was kind of off the top of my head watching Kansas City and Austin Sunday night. But my underrated 11 was Joe Willis in goal. Back line, I tried to do it in a 4-3-3, like actually positionally. Ryan Hollingshead at left back. Dave Romney and Robin Janssen at center back. Brooks Lennon at right back. Ilie, Gregush, and Marky Delgado as central midfielders. Shea Salinas, Florian Velo as wingers, and Will Bruin up top.
All right. Yeah, I like to get you. I like that. That's a good 11. I think they go out and win some games.
Yeah, I think they could.
Like I said, I think I put Muehl in there.
Muehl's a good shout.
And even too, I mean, he's a younger guy, but a similar type of guy. And I think Austin has, again, it's been hard to keep him out of the lineup is Jared Stroud, right? Where he's been great.
Yeah, he has.
You know, he just has to do simple stuff, right? And open up space for the other guys and press on the ball and just do all the running and winning second balls. He's been a really big part of what Austin, the success of Austin early on, at least like a behind the scenes kind of guy.
Yeah, I think if they finish 11v11 in that match, they get a result against Kansas City. I think they win it, but I think they definitely get a result. That was a horrible second yellow from Ring.
Yeah, no, you can't. That's not a good look.
No, not at all. Last one from you, John, before we let Dylan go.
All right, so then since we're talking about Verde, let's let Dylan get Verde a little bit. You know, you see John Gallagher, who Atlanta United folks really like from his tenure here, making an instant impact. When you look at the continued Verde-ness, for lack of a better word, the word I just created, by the way, of Austin not intimidated by their surroundings, going into Children's Mercy, you know, and getting that goal early on. Obviously, we take the moment away from Ring. But from what we're seeing right now from Austin, they're not intimidated by anything that they're getting into right now.
Hey, listen, guys, I said I think it might have been like our week one hit or certainly early on, but I had touted Austin as a playoff team and
that's bold.
I think JC gave me a little bit of pushback.
I did.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
But I think we're seeing that. And again, I think they're not necessarily like that sexy expansion side, right? Where they're just wowing everybody but with Reyna and with Wolf, I think they've built a solid squad, and there's room to add to that as well. So, like a Matt Beasler, right? Like that's such a smart signing. And Alex Ring as well, right? Like where you get, obviously second yellow notwithstanding, you get a guy who's been a leader and who's been a terrific defensive midfielder, but last year with New York City FC also showed, look, if you need him in a pinch, say on the left or further up the field, he can deliver there as well. And right now, as you said, maybe you get a point out of that, and if they do, they're above the playoff line. So I think certainly I would expect LAFC to be above there. I think Dallas is a bit of a conundrum there. Will San Jose, as we said, kind of continue that form? Who knows? Is Vancouver going to stay up? But I think Austin will be pretty consistently around that playoff line and be pushing for a spot in the West. So I stick to my guns with that. And yes, they've been very impressive through their first games. And again, too, these are all on the road, right? So you've gotten some points from the road before you open up your stadium, and you expect then certainly additional points to come from home. Every
time a team's had a backloaded schedule, they've made the playoffs. Every time. And yeah, they could. If they keep picking up points on the road, they will. There's a couple teams that are above that line right now in the West that I don't think will be there. So we'll see how this shakes out. Two questions for you. One's a simple one. I've seen it on the Bundesliga broadcast, and I know they push it really hard. I think Serie A does. Do you know if it's available to see the running stats publicly, like how many miles or kilometers a player runs in a match? Is that publicly available, or is that all behind the scenes?
That's a good question. I know like Second Spectrum does that stuff, but that's a good question. I think my cheap answer is to say I don't know, but I do know that sort of in the new look or not rebranded, but the new look Mlsoccer.com, there's like a lot of additional stats that are there.
Yeah.
But I love those. Like, that's where I'm saying, like with Mlsoccer, like I love those, how much ground covered, because it just shows just like the work rate and sort of what, more than just key passes or assists, right? Like it shows that extra work put in.
It can be illuminating for some teams.
What's that?
It can be illuminating for some teams and some matches and kind of how things shake out to see,
absolutely,
where they pop up. This team outran the other one by X amount of kilometers. That kind of stuff's pretty interesting. Okay. I'm curious if that becomes more of a talking point here. Maybe it does as we kind of add more elements to broadcast and talking about these things. But the final question for you, it is our first ever Top Tier Tuesday, and we are asking for people to give us their 2 most naturally gifted players they've ever seen. Just naturally gifted skill that you've ever seen. Who are the 2 that come to mind?
Does this have to be like in person or just like that I've watched?
That you've watched. Yeah, it doesn't have to be in person in the stadium.
So one of the reasons I fell in love with this sport was watching like Sunday morning Serie A, old school Napoli, watching Diego Maradona just do his stuff. So he was remarkable to me, just his brilliance on the ball, and so that's one. And then the other, I would say, along those lines, right? A diminutive Argentine is Messi.
Yeah.
I was fortunate for a couple times, like on some of these tours, and whether it was the Copa America or Barcelona coming in, I've seen him in person as well, or I've seen him in person. Actually, I haven't seen Maradona play in person, but I've seen Messi play in person, and it's just mesmerizing. Like, he's a guy that you should always have like that top right kind of picture-in-picture and just ISO on him, right? Because just watch him always, the runs that he makes, and just obviously on the ball. But I would go those 2 guys. Like those are my top 2 tier. And look, I'm sure a lot of people that you ask will probably have those same 2 guys. I'm not like sort of throwing a wild name out of left field, but for me, those are my 2. And that's not even my favorite all-time player. Like, my favorite all-time player is Alan Shearer from.
Whoa, that's really different. Okay.
I'm a Newcastle fan because of him.
Nice.
But yeah, no, like Maradona, Messi, that's next level right there. So.
So then asking you about Steve Bruce is in an entirely different segment whatsoever, right?
Can I mute my headphones?
Yes. Yes, you can. We try to every time we talk about Newcastle. Sorry to Alex Bassine, one of our loyal viewers who is very happy with you right now, by the way.
Nice. Well, listen, he will agree. We need an owner, right? We need a new owner. Let's enough with Ashley. Get a new owner, spend some money, and Newcastle can again be the elite club that they should be, right? The fans, the stadium. I've been fortunate to see a match there. It's an unbelievable experience. The town just adores Newcastle, and they deserve better. So Ashley out, and then Newcastle up.
Excellent. Well, get this happening for you, Newcastle folks. It's been a rough go lately, but you're going to stay up, so that's cool at least. And maybe, possibly, hopefully, a new owner here at some point.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
I've heard it for a few years, so
I know.
I
know. Dylan, thanks for the time this morning. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Be good.
Dylan_Butler on your social media platforms. One of the best over at Mlsoccer.com, one of the best covering the league inside and out on a regular basis. Dylan always takes some time for us on Tuesdays, and it is much, much appreciated. All right. We got a lot of stuff to get into, I am sure, on the social medias. As we asked Dylan, I am asking all of you who are listening. And, John, I'm going to have you get out a legal pad and work through this so we can create the tier. That's the whole idea here of the most gifted players you have seen ever for you. Who are they? We'll start to create a little bit of a tier with this by the end of the show. You get 2. You can pick 2. Since John and I are doing the show and talking a lot, we get 5. I'm sorry. You guys get 2, and we will go from there. So, John, you're going to have to kind of track this a little bit. I'm putting a little bit on you today.
Okay, I say I have the legal pad out, and I'm ready to write and tracking down. I think Spreaker is misbehaving as an entity today as well. So,
well, that's good. Good times on Spreaker. So that the podcast will get posted on Spreaker afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get into this as we go. Twitch will have some answers for you as well, so you can go there. John does not get 6 for winning those 2 boxes last week.
You're amazing. That's a great idea.
You're blowing him up way too much. I'd have so many extra picks in everything we do if that was the case, but no, we're not going to do that game. Yeah, you win 1 time out of 11, and it's the greatest thing in the world. I win every other week, and it's ho-hum. I'm just saying. All right.
But you can't get to 6 without getting to 1. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, sure, but whatever. Anyway, 6 is better than 1 by a lot. I don't really know what to tell you.
But I can't climb the ladder until I get that first win, and that's my point.
Okay, good job. All right. What else do we have on Twitter? I'm sure it started to blow up a little bit.
Okay. More folks are discussing our lack of Spreakerness than anything else.
Well, good times. Let me try to get that dialed up since that is being difficult. It's been a little bit hectic this morning. Go ahead and fill in on some other things while I get that dialed up.
Okay. Under the weather, we have nothing else off of the topic that we had before Dylan was on. The other stuff that is on Twitter this morning, Nathan Pugh gives his 2 for top tier, and Nathan's 2. He says, I'll take this as players I've either seen in person or live on TV. So Nathan says Messi, easy answer for a mid-30-something. And his second one, now, and this is an interesting point that Nathan brings up here. Can it be a player from a particular year or season, or does it have to be the individual on the whole?
The individual on the whole. It's not greatest season. It's the individual player.
Okay. Because Nathan says 2013-14 Luis Suarez, his ability in the 18 to figure out how to get the ball, and then it was pure beauty.
Okay, Spreaker should be up and running now. Sorry about that. Reboot, and we're good to go with it. It is allegedly live, so there you go.
So Nathan's second was Luis Suarez, but from a particular season.
Okay, that's not what we're doing. So it'll be the most gifted players period. So come up with another one, Nathan. Let us know. Luis Suarez is incredibly gifted. Like that, in general, that's completely fine as an answer because you look at this different ways. I mean, a forward's gifts are a little bit different than a number 10's gifts, different than a defender's gifts. So there's all kinds of different things here. But we will get into that. We've got a bunch on the Twitch pitch that I hope you're grabbing. We'll give you ours later in the show. What else on Twitter, John?
One more on Twitter, Under the Weather, says something and this is about Atlanta United in general this season, that Under the Weather is noticed. Something everyone seems to be missing is that every team is simply hacking down our players when they do get by without punishment. Atlanta's the most fouled team in the league and have only drawn 7 yellows, 3 of which have been given in the 90th minute or later.
Yeah, it's been consistent. That's not even a new thing this year, and it is very frustrating. When you have the ball as much as Atlanta does in general, you're going to get fouled more. That's generally common. It shouldn't be the case that there have only been 4 yellows before the 90th minute. I despise the late yellows for persistent infringement at the very end. It's almost insulting that you're giving it then when you didn't give it in the 60th or the 70th or the 45th or the 30th like you see in some of these games. Because it doesn't feel like it goes that way on the other side. Maybe it's just somewhat a bias, like, they have the ball a lot, so they're going to get fouled. I don't know. It's not new, and it drives me insane because I've said it consistently for years. The league should prioritize not going above and beyond the rules, but protecting these kinds of players we're talking about on a Top Tier Tuesday, these special players who are on the ball instead of basically incentivizing teams to just hack them down because they're going to get 3-4 hacks before a yellow card is thrown. It shouldn't be that way. Marcelino Moreno was fouled 7 times on the weekend. That's a crazy number. That's just a crazy number. Like, the top players in the league in fouls earned each season, generally 3 is where you're at for the most fouled player in the league per game. Moreno's fouled 7 times in one. I mean, that's nuts. That's way too much. It's got to change. It's got to change. And I mean, Coco says, imagine if the NFL or the NBA didn't protect their playmakers. Well, the NBA changed.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA changed over the years. The NBA, I mean, you had fights through the 80s, like on a regular basis. And you had to go look back at the beatings that Michael Jordan took on his way up before they started to protect their top players more. Some people don't like that. Usually the people who don't like that are the players who can't play at that level. And that's their great equalizer, is to be able to be physical. The rules allow you to be physical, and this is basketball and it's soccer and it's any sport. But you do have to punish consistently bad behavior. It's something in this game that gets frustrating, and it's not new. And, Dylan brought up Maradona. I mean, Maradona was kicked all over Italy during his time at Napoli. He was brutally hacked down in Spain by the butcher Goicoechea of Athletic Bilbao, who broke his ankle with a horrendous tackle. He's kicked all over Argentina as he was coming up, too, because he was an incredible player. That part of the game doesn't need to be celebrated. It needs to be punished more. And I hope that MLS can be smart and lead that way, because I think it makes for a better game. It makes for a more eye-catching game, a more appealing game.
Well, and I mean, you made the point about basketball. I mean, you remember the Pistons and the Lakers, where you had the whole bad boys era with the Pistons and what they wanted to do with guys like
you remember
Bill
the Pistons and the Bulls a whole lot more than the Pistons and the Lakers, because the Pistons beat the ever-loving crap out of Michael Jordan for years. And
so when the Pistons could beat the Bulls in a series and then get to the Lakers, I was thinking NBA championships.
Yeah, but they were. I don't remember the Pistons being as physical they were with the Lakers, but the Pistons are known for putting Michael Jordan on the ground over and over and over and over and over.
That again was their number one thing with Chuck Daly and the Bad Boys philosophy: put Jordan on the ground.
Yeah, and that's not what's good for the game as a whole, and that's why the Pistons were not liked in the game by a lot of people. The people who did were generally from Detroit, or people who honestly weren't very good at the game, and this was their great equalizer. So, what is it? I think Fourcard, who is listening from the Sudan today, which is awesome.
Oh, wow.
We're totally worldwide. Fourcard said, what's it going to take for it to change? Earlier yellow cards when this becomes obvious. And I think when you see a player fouled twice, more than twice, when he is beating people on the dribble, it's obvious. It shouldn't get to 7 fouls. It should be a couple of fouls, and you realize, hey, you can't just kick this guy when he beats you on the dribble regularly. You're going to get a card. You're going to get a second yellow. We rarely see what happened with Alex Ring. Now, Alex Ring lost his head and should have backed out of challenges and should have changed his game. But we rarely see that situation against Atlanta United. And, it's just... Now, Ricky Ricardo, I agree that the Pistons were good at the game, but I don't think they were good for the game.
Yeah.
I don't think beating up the best player in the league on a regular basis and putting them on the ground and potentially putting them at risk of injury is good for the sport. Doesn't mean they weren't a good team. There's a different conversation there. They were an incredible team. They were an incredible defensive team. And Isaiah Thomas is one of the more underrated players in the league's history. I don't think he's very well liked, and that's probably why he's rated as such. But great team. Not good for the game as a whole. The NBA blew up when Jordan could be Jordan more. Now, has it gone too far the other way? You can argue that. You could argue that with LeBron and some of the fouls he gets from time to time and some of that. There is a balance somewhere in there. But no, I don't like teams that can be equalizers by hacking top talented players down.
Yeah.
Joe Dumars is great, Kefsey. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And the Celtics-Pistons series were awesome too, yes. But the Pistons, and this was a huge part of The Last Dance, and it's a huge part of Jordan's history. He's the greatest player to ever play the game. Pistons beat him up, and that's what they were known for so long. They were known for being good, but yeah, they had other great series and other great rivalries. But it was the Pistons that the Bulls had to get by to become the great Bulls teams of the 90s. And it took them years to do it.
And, you mentioned good for the game, not good for the game. When the Pistons did that hyper defensive style where they're only scoring in the high 70s, low 80s, and they're winning series and they're advancing in the playoffs, that's not good for the game when you do stuff like that. And I know that today when you look at scores that are in the 140s and things like that on a regular basis, and you're wondering, is that good for a game? I think that there's a happy medium, but it comes down to making sure that your stars are protected and that they can show off. I mean, because when we had Bird and Magic, Celtics and Lakers, and you got to see the ability of those starting fives because they all had, different things that they bring to the table with Bird and McHale and Dennis Johnson, and you had the Celtics with them, and then the Lakers obviously with Magic and Michael Cooper, who could hit from the outside, and Kareem, and all the different elements that were there. That's why they were good teams, and they were good for the sport. They were good for the league in advancing the league into must-see television for a different network than NBC, who pulled that for their own programming.
Yeah, we could go on and on about old school basketball, but it's the same thing in soccer. Pelé was kicked out of the 1966 World Cup, basically, literally, just brutalized. Maradona in 82. Go watch the game against Italy and what Gentile did to him. It's borderline assault. It's very frustrating. Yes, you can hear more old school basketball talk on the No Swag Shop. Thank you, Turner. On Thursdays at 2:00 on Facebook.com/929thegame. And we might actually have some either watch-alongs or post-game things on the No Swag Shop with myself and Andy Bunker during the Hawks playoff run.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll be very busy. All right, John, you've got a read to do here in just a minute. Do we have another tweet we need to get to before that?
Let's see. Oh, Alex Piscine, after listening to our conversation with Dylan Butler, he says, just learning that at Dylan_Butler is a mag too. I love it. And he has a hashtag HWTL. So Piscine and Dylan Butler, they're now commiserating. They're now amigos on social media.
Yes, good new friends here. That's what we do. We bring people together on SDH. We get people who are fans of the same teams in the same place, and they can enjoy sometimes the bad things that happen with a team like Newcastle. Sorry, Dylan and Alex. And sometimes the good things, like staying up. Steve Bruce is the best manager in the history of the game, of course, because he got them to stay up.
Disintegration was the best album ever, yes.
No, that actually was a really good album. Steve Bruce is not a really good manager, but anyway.
No.
Howay the Lads is what the hashtag was. It's their thing. Why is that their thing, Alex? Please explain that to me.
What is the Howay the Lads? Explain that, please.
What is HOWAY? What is that word and what does that mean? Please. Where did this come from? I need an explanation from the Newcastle contingent, and I'm looking to you, Alex. Yes. Georgie slang. There we go. Thank you. Perfect Tommy's giving a shout out to Rich Ransom. I did not see Rich in the chat. My bad. Is he here? I like the shout out though, Tommy. Rich is a good dude. Okay. Geordie slang. I got it now. I understand. Go on, boys. Let's go, boys. Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Got it. I understand now. Still
check.
Strange, Alex. Sorry, Alex. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and knock your read out?
Sure.
So you can tell us about Steve Apolinsky and all of the wonderful things that our good friend does from Decatur, GA.
Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, one place you need to go, and it is said firm, Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. 3 different ways that you can do it. You can pick up the phone, get a free consultation, 404-377-9191, or you can shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com, or you can go on the World Wide Web, large device or small, type in aa-legal.com, in the address bar, hit the arrow key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances you to the homepage for Appolinsky and Associates LLC. You get to see all of the different cases they can handle for you from the pull-down tabs, and you can see all the different awards that they have won in their over 30 years of experience and over $40 million that they have garnered for their clients in 2 time zones, the Eastern and the Central, for clients in Georgia and Alabama. And if, by looking at the website, looking at all the pull-down tabs, accessing all the information, staring at all the awards that they have garnered in their time, if you still have questions, you can perhaps get them answered at the pop-up window, which pops up low right-hand corner, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison, for always reminding us about the Earth's rotation here on the network. Recognized legally by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. It is Appolinsky and Associates LLC in beautiful, bustling Decatur, GA, and the website is aa-legal.com.
You went a little long.
I did? Okay.
A little bit. A little long.
Okay. Like I said, you have to be the gauge of that for me, because I don't have a clock and I'm staring at it.
A little bit. You're reading the punctuation now, -2. Byrne gives you 11 for winning the Picks of the Week last week. Byrne should probably get 2 or 3 of those points.
That is not in dispute. It is about the collective.
Yeah, you didn't want to thank him, though. I'm just saying. Overly verbose, -2. Jason Nix.
Verbose.
Yeah, well, you were long. That's another way of putting it. Jason Nix, I reject 365 and a quarter as well, -1. He gives you a 5 today. Abby gives you a 6.59. Lots of extra words today. Ooh, using the pen, no pause. Hard to remember how to score. It's been a minute for Abby. So 6.59. Tiki Taka gives you a 10. I didn't even know I wanted a lawyer until just now. Alex Pacine is mixing things up by giving you a 10.
Thanks, Alex.
-3 for the audible comma. Thank you, Mazzano. 5, overly wordy and rambling. 7.354, had to wait for the Earth's rotation to finish the read. Do less do, just do you. 8.
Kefsey, I just started. I literally just started and was pouring it before I read the promo. I started off the show with Diet Dr. Pepper. Maybe that's my problem.
Maybe that's the problem. 7.3, inconsistent pacing, and just a miscellaneous -0.7.
Okay.
Perhaps get them answered, -4, -2 for reading a comma, -1 kind of all over the place, so a 3 from Ricky. A 3 from Riley.
Why did you need a quick read today?
There's a lot of things to talk about, I'm assuming. 7.85, bustling Decatur with a question mark. Nick gives you a 10. Nick is just really, really pushing you up in a big way these days. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Y'all can have your fun. 6 out of 11, that's all I know. 3 out of 10, just a bad read today. Quick reads are always good. I agree, Coco. All right, questions from the Twitch pitch. It is open season, so have at it, Twitch pitch. What questions do you want to get into? If you're now listening on the app, you got questions, you can tweet at us or you can join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/soccer down here. Let's get into what you guys want to get into. We have gotten into it, ATL to Madtown. We did at the beginning of the show. The article at The Athletic from Felipe Cardenas about Atlanta United. So if you have questions about it, we will talk about it. And okay, so I'm waiting on those questions. ATL to Madtown says Boca hot seat. See, this is the problem with that, Madtown. One article does not create a hot seat. It doesn't. Now, people have had other reasons about things, and they've talked about the roster and the talent level and this and that, and there have definitely been some narratives out there. It's a little difficult for me to agree with a hot seat based off the success that has been had too, and when the failures have happened, what has been involved in leading to those. I would have loved to have seen that team last year if Joseph Martinez is healthy, and you have the PB&J front three for a while. I really liked where that was going. I did not see that kind of season coming. I did think that Frank de Boer would solve not having Joseph Martinez. Sounds like there were other issues there that have already been talked about. This is, not new in that regard. So no, I think a hot seat there because of an article doesn't make any sense. These things happen in clubs. I haven't been in a front office in an MLS team. I've been around a front office in a second division team. I wasn't involved in anything on the soccer side when I worked for the Atlanta Ruckus when I was in college. I've been around the front office with the Silverbacks during their time in the NASL a lot. I wasn't in a decision-making role, but I was around it. There's always these kinds of things. It's very rare that there's not. It's very rare that everybody is always of the same mindset and everybody is pushing in the same direction. You have push-pull. You have friction. You have people that disagree. And in this article, you have people who went not on the record, but behind the scenes with anonymous quotes about their takes. Okay, that's going to happen. That is part of it. It's all coming out at one time, and that's, not ideal, of course. It's not ideal that any of this comes out. You like to keep these things in-house because, again, they do happen. But no, I don't think it creates a hot seat at all. An article should not create a hot seat. And it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit yesterday. The start to this season is pretty much what you would have reasonably expected the start of this season to be. I would have liked to have seen them get past Philly. I think they could have gotten past Philly. They didn't. The league results are not awful, especially look at the league. Look at what you're building. Look at where you're headed. This doesn't happen overnight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. So what crisis is there right now outside of an article? Articles don't create hot seats in this regard for this, because these are things that happen behind the scenes at almost any club. It's just part of the deal. I don't know. That's where I'm at with it. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, the quote that you were referencing from Felipe's article, where Darren goes on the record about tension. He says, "Here's the quote. There will always be tension between a head coach and a technical director or director of football because they naturally have different perspectives. Coaches naturally, and quite rightly, care about results because they feel that their sort of longevity depends upon results from week to week. A good technical director or general manager, his role is to be thinking about the medium to long term for the club and not necessarily just from game to game. That creates a healthy tension in all clubs all over the world. It's working properly," end quote.
Yeah, you have to have the short and the medium and the long all represented. If it's only short-termism, you have what we see in Brazil all the time with managers getting fired over, a month's results. If it's only long-term, you don't get short-term results. And look, this was the balance that we've talked about with Gabriel Heinze coming in. He's building for a longer-term project. But there is a pressure, as we see from the reaction to a draw from the weekend. There is a push for results from the fan base. That's both of it. That's what you get. You have pressure for short-term. You also have to deliver medium and long-term. You need people who are looking at both. Those things are not always in alignment. They're not. You can't always be in alignment in that. And you have to have somebody who is making those decisions, who is looking for the big picture. That's just part of it. Riley says, why was Carlos the technical director in the first place? Seems Paul or Lucy were more experienced in MLS in that role. Well, Riley, Lucy had never worked in MLS, so no, she wasn't a technical director at that point. The move up to being a general manager in DC is a move up from the roles that she's had in her career previously, and she's earned it. But at that time, she'd never worked in MLS. Paul had, and Paul was coming over from Orlando, but when Carlos was hired, Paul was working for Orlando. So Carlos was hired 2 years before the start. 2 years before the start of the team. And Paul came in 2016, if I remember right. Yeah. Carlos was hired before the team had a name. He was one of the first 10 hires in the club, I think, across the board. So timeline-wise, Paul wasn't available, and Lucy had no experience in MLS. You created a team that worked really well together, even with friction, and built a championship team in 2 years. That's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
John, you've gone all Matrix for some reason with your camera. I don't understand.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why that triggers and why I go max headroom or Neo-Cubist or take on me or whatever. So.
Ricky and Kefsey, when we get into, we'll try to get into that in just a little bit if we can. The Columbus situation, we talked about it on Soccer Over There last night. I think the logo is completely and utterly unnecessary. I'm not a huge fan of their current logo. I think it's too busy, but they didn't need to change the name. The logo is not an upgrade. Are they the Crew or are they not the Crew? Are they unofficially the Crew? Like it's just everything around it has been really poorly handled. So I think they're messing this up in a big way. Kefsey wants to know, when Atlanta United changes its badge, what would you change? Man, I don't know if I would change anything.
I don't think I would.
I like the stripes in the background. I love the A. I mean, if I was going to be like trying to refresh, and I wouldn't change anything, but I'd use that A more isolated because I love the A. I'd utilize that in a bigger way. I don't think I'd change anything right now. I like what it is. 10, 20 years, maybe you're having a different conversation, but no, I think it's a pretty classic, standard, timeless kind of badge. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I like what David said about changing the logo, putting another star on top.
Well, of course. Matt Wagner says, Jurgen Dahm with some interesting social media posts about the therapy techniques at the training grounds. Good to see the care the players are getting for injuries. Yeah, I mean, the club spent a lot to be able to take care of the players as best as possible. They have spent a lot of money on this to be able to do it. So the players are getting access to a lot of different things. It's very cool to see. Yeah, I mean, to know that they're going to get everything possible to be able to get back on the field as fast as possible and be healthy, that's very cool. Coco says this, should this article talking about Boca keeping FDB in the dark on signings earn FDB more respect from the fan base? FDB put 3 trophies in the case while being in the dark on players coming in. This is another element where I feel like we've talked about this from day one of the show. It's very rare in the game worldwide for a manager to have an open checkbook and be able to do whatever they want with signings. That's not typical, and I don't know why there's an expectation that it is. Now, how much communication goes on, different conversation. But it's not that the managers in the world are able to just go do what they want. I mean, you saw it with Jose Mourinho in the Spurs series, for example, and if anybody's going to have clout to try to pull that kind of thing off, Jose would be one of those people. He didn't have complete say over everything. He couldn't go out and just sign whoever he wanted. He couldn't just go ahead and get rid of anybody he wanted to. Sounds like he didn't want Gareth Bale coming in. You know, I mean, these things do happen. The whole idea about Frank de Boer and does he deserve more respect? He deserves more respect for what he did on the field. I don't think this changes anything. When he came in 2019, I mean, you had an established team, and yes, you had some turnover. You had turnover more going into 1920, which was very difficult because you were in year 3 and you had a bunch of contracts up. That's where it sounds like maybe there was a disconnect. Maybe De Boer didn't want to be involved in that. Maybe he didn't provide proper communication. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't very verbal in what he wanted. We don't know. And that's the one thing about, you know, stories like this and articles like this. This is coming from one side of it. You know, it is. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I hope people understand this. And before you start going off and saying, oh, well, this is what was said and taking things out of context, it's just one side of the story. And it's a very well-sourced side of the story, it seems like, and there's a lot to it. But it is one side of the story. The why that would have been the case would be a interesting part of the story to know. So, I mean, Frank de Boer was somebody who wasn't familiar with MLS. I don't assume that he was. I don't know what he would have known about the MLS player pool and who he could have gotten from Minnesota or Colorado to better the team, stuff like that. Don't know. Things were in flux as well because Paul McDonough went to Miami at that point. The team that was involved in making decisions was changing. So that's where you are. And I know a lot of people have been very down on what the roster looked like going into 20. And a lot of people were very upset about some of their fan favorites leaving the club. When you really go through those decisions, it's a little tough to be too upset about the Gressel and the Nagbe deals. And I know, look, the Nagbe deal is one of these. You have Santiago Sosa right now, who, I said it before, I'll say it again, I think he ultimately has more of an impact on this club on the field than Darlington Nagbe overall. I know that's a hot take. That's fine. I think he will. I think Darlington's a great player. Darlington wanted to go home, and I do think that was a huge factor. I believe Nick Leafy is on the line.
Yep. Can you guys hear me? Everything going well on that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I wanted to chime in on the article, and one, it's an incredible read. I'll put that out there. So kudos to Felipe for the legwork, obviously, that he's done on that. But I will say, I do have to push back a bit on the idea that every championship-winning club, no matter the sport, is this harmonious atmosphere where everyone gets along and it's a pure collaborative effort. Look at the Bulls. We just saw it, when COVID went down, and we saw The Last Dance, the friction between Phil Jackson, Reinsdorf, Jerry Krause, and
That's
the team.
Good shout.
And so whenever we look at that, Krause was maligned by the team to no end. Remember, they called him crumbs, that he was superfluous, he didn't need to be there. And then you saw, almost to a person, everyone said, yeah, Krause actually helped put together some really good teams and made some really good decisions. And then the one decision that everyone seemingly railed on him with is deciding to break that Bulls team up. Now, ESPN went out and put together a podcast that had Krause's last interview before he passed. Excuse me. And he detailed, here's why we broke the team up. And he freely admitted that he made a number of mistakes along the way. But the decisions, in hindsight, a lot of them appeared to be correct. Now, I look at the situation that we have here in Atlanta, and the one thing the rise and the fall and the rise back up, a fall to me would have been like if Atlanta had been terrible. Like if we had like 3 or 4 2020 seasons back to back, I would say that, that would probably be better defined as a fall rather than a one season anomaly. You can say that, hey, look, 2019 was a bit boring for me personally because we didn't press, because we weren't quote unquote high energy. That's fine. We can have that argument all day. But the idea that there needs to be this harmonious atmosphere, I really have to push back against that. Look at the Yankees during their run, the issues between Cashman, Steinbrenner, Torrey. You have friction in these situations, and some people are notoriously difficult to work with, and that's fine. But I will say that if you were to interview Bocanegra 5 years from now, he may say that, yeah, there are things I wish I could have done differently. Maybe let's go into the land of make-believe and say that without question, the Bielsa thing is true. I'm sure Bocanegra would probably say, yeah, I wish I probably would have called him back. That's probably a rookie mistake, or we were extraordinarily slammed during that period because we were trying to put X and Y and Z together. And yeah, I wish I could have done something differently there. Or with Nagbe, here's why we structured the deal this way. Or maybe we were hesitant to do this. Maybe we picked up on some ideas that he wanted to go home and this could be problematic down the road. So we didn't fashion the deal as quickly as we wanted. I have to push back a bit on this idea that it has to be a harmonious atmosphere and that so-and-so's on, Bocanegra's on the hot seat because of this. But I will say that sometimes that can work to your favor if there's strong enough leadership in place to help curb some of the rougher edges that you may have, like in dealing with, let's say, Tata Martino and from Bocanegra, right? And we could say, yeah, well, Bielsa's one of the greatest managers of all time. Agreed. He's also one of the most notorious mercurial managers of all time, where he could come in and say, oh, I don't like something, and I'm out, and I'm gone.
How'd it go at Lazio for Bielsa?
Oh, right. He was out. What? It was over with before it even began.
Right.
Right. And so instead, we ended up with Tata Martino, and we were able to produce something magical with that. And it's hard for me to say that that was a bad thing. Would we have loved to have gotten Marcelo Bielsa in front of Atlanta media and Atlanta fans? Sure, yes. You're not getting the Bielsa of Leeds. The Bielsa of Leeds is happening because of the relationship that exists between the club and the manager saying, I get to make all the choices. Thank you. Have a great day. And being backed unequivocally by the club in doing so. You can't do that here, so I don't know if it would have been successful. We could do revisionist history all day. But I that's the one thing I do want to push back with, is that there have been adversarial relationships in successful clubs all over the place. And yes, it is working well for Leeds. It is working well for Leeds. But Leeds also doesn't have a salary cap. They have financial fair play that they need to be compliant with. But you can't walk in and say, I need all of these players. And this is what we're going to get.
I'll even go a step further, Nick. And I think this is the important thing on somebody like Bielsa. And it's the difference between Bielsa and Tata Martino. Tata Martino will get bigger teams. And I'm not slighting Leeds. Leeds was a championship team when they hired Bielsa.
Right.
But Tata Martino has shown in his career that he will be more pragmatic to get results. He got the Barcelona job because he showed a willingness to be more pragmatic with Paraguay in the World Cup. He got that job. Of course, the relationships from Argentina and Messi and all that factor into it, of course. But he gets that opportunity. Bielsa doesn't get that opportunity because he is very dogmatic. He is very, it is my way, that is it. Now, that's what's so interesting about the progression here from a Tata Martino, who has shown a pragmatic streak. Of course, the playoffs in 2018, I mean, that demonstrates what he did here in Atlanta, where he got very pragmatic in terms of, I need to win, I'm going to change the way we play to get there. To Frank de Boer, who, again, that from the play side of things, what Tata did, what Frank did, is a progression. There's a little bit of talk about that progression of being able to deal with teams who sit deeper. You get into the positional play more to open them up, lean into that more. I mean, you can see it if you go back and look at the 2019 team in the second half. They're spreading the field like this team does now. So then going to Gabriel Heinze, same thing. Now, Gabriel Heinze is a lot like Bielsa in the sense that he is – dogmatic's not the right word. He is very focused on playing a certain way and playing the way that he feels. And he's not going to change that yet. He's a young manager. Right now he's implementing a system, so he can't change it. It'd be counterproductive to do that. Will he go down the road more of a Bielsa, who it's my way, I don't care about the effect on results, or the way of Martino, who will get bigger jobs and bigger situations? And Heinze's played in those big clubs. He knows that mentality. Will he go down that and say, okay, I've established my way. Now I have to establish that I understand when my way needs a little bit of pragmatism mixed in to get results based off, I'm at Real Madrid and my whole back line is hurt, like right now. And Zinedine Zidane has to change things up because he doesn't have a choice. I mean, his whole starting back line is out.
Right.
Can Heinze do that? Like Bielsa, we don't know how it was handled. Again, we're getting one side of it. Bielsa would not have worked here. Bielsa would not work as a U.S. national team manager. I've had these arguments. I would love it from a theory perspective, but it wouldn't work from a business perspective. He works at clubs like Leeds, at smaller clubs, Athletic Bilbao, who wasn't ever going to be able to go out and spend crazy money because of their Basque-only policy. He works at certain places. When he's went to other places, it's fallen apart. Lazio and Marseille, I think, are prime examples.
Mm-hmm. And remember what Frank had said about Inter, and I give Frank plenty of credit for what he was able to achieve when he was here, but I also say that I think that Frank had made numerous mistakes along the way in his club career. Mm-hmm. Inter, the one thing I completely agree with him on is that club was a disaster behind the scenes.
Yeah, he shouldn't have taken that job.
Right, and he shouldn't have taken that job. It was a terrible mistake on his end. But the idea of, well, I didn't know how, while Chara said, I didn't know things were that bad behind the scenes. Look, every club has that. I go back to the Buccaneers when Tony Dungy, his last year in charge, they had a terrible time keeping Warren Sapp in line. And so they brought in player after player after player from the leadership side to say, and Tony Dungy said, look, you guys have to solve this. And Rich McKay was a part of this conversation. Tony Dungy was a part of the conversation, and the team leaders had to come in. And things were absolutely getting disrupted in that locker room on the way to their NFC title runs. And now, of course, things change when Gruden comes in, but they still had challenges keeping those players in line and the static and the issues in the background. The idea that there's always this harmonious atmosphere behind successful clubs, it is a myth. Zeus, Hera, all of them, the Olympians, all of it is there to say, guys, it's the same thing. It's all mythology. There's drama and nonstop issues. And I got somebody who just walked up to the door here real quick. But it's an issue that exists, guys. And there's always problems. There's always egos at play. And if Bocanegra, I'm sure, again, Bocanegra would love to have some moments back. And I'm not defending Bocanegra to the hilt. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he probably made mistakes. Darren has probably made mistakes, things that they would like to go back and redo. And Tata Martino, along the same way, would say, yeah, I probably would like to handle this different. Or same thing with Frank DeBoer. It's part of it. It's part of the issue. It's part of the stuff that always happens behind the club scenes. At AC Milan, you had the issue with issues where they were talking about bringing in Rangnick, and you had Evan Gazidis going against Maldini and going against Pioli and all the drama that was taking place there. And this is when they were, quote unquote, winter champions. They were in the middle of a resurgence and this was happening. So there's always drama behind the scenes. It's more compounded when you have a salary cap that is sort of the giant wall that you're always being pressed against. So I think that's the one issue here where you have to make harder choices earlier on that, where fan favorites are going out the door, and you have to be a bit brutal. And I think that's the one similarity here with Krause is that Krause made a series of decisions like Luke Longley, whose knees were at that point on wet paper towel. And you had Dennis Rodman, who was getting ancient. And, okay, who do you want to bring back and at what price? And I think that's the issue that Atlanta United's dealing with as well. And fan favorites get on the chopping board, which adds to fan anger. And then you have someone who doesn't get in front of mics often, like Carlos doesn't. I wish he probably would have gone on record. Maybe that's a team decision. Maybe that's his. I don't know. But
it's a tough spot.
It's a tough spot. You're always at a tough spot. Let me go see who's at the door real quick. I'll jump back on.
Yeah, do your thing. It's a tough spot. And look, it's not the first time there's been that kind of questioning. So it's, you're kind of backed up against the wall by a piece like this. It's tough to deal with it, and that's tough to deal the strategy with it.
Yeah, and to Nick's point about the Bulls, what the whole notion was: do we bring all of these guys back for one more year to make another run and spend an inordinate amount of money keeping everyone around and increasing salaries, or do you break it a year early? And that's the question across the board that a lot of teams face. In your idea of, okay, have we maxed out our resources? Or do we continue down this road and risk handicapping ourselves financially down the line if we don't make these decisions a year ahead? You'd rather be a year ahead of the curve financially and in your philosophy and bringing in personnel than a year behind, because then that sets you that much further back when you're trying to get back to where you were in these situations.
Yeah, running a team is difficult. I mean, there's just, like Nick said, you can go back through Jerry Krause, who had a Hall of Fame career with the Bulls. Did he get things wrong? Yeah, he did. He absolutely did. They won 6 trophies. So, yes, he got things wrong, but was it successful? Yes, both can be true. You can make mistakes in a signing. You can make mistakes in letting a player go. You can make mistakes in dealing with somebody. But is it successful? Yes. There's just no other way around it. Yes. Can it be better? Well, you hope it can. You're always striving for that. It's the idea, if you've ever worked in the nonprofit side and You've, dealt with mission and vision statements. Your mission is what you do. It is specifically like what you do and maybe how you do it. Your vision statement is what you strive to be, that big pie in the sky thing that you're trying to be that you might not ever truly be able to be. That's what you're working towards every day. Any team in the world is working towards winning every game they play and winning every trophy they are in. Is that possible? No, it's not. It is impossible to win every match you play, get every signing right, make every decision correct, and win every trophy. It is impossible to do it in 1 year, let alone a career in a front office or on a touchline. It's tough. It's tough. And people are not going to like you when you make decisions that go against them. That's the challenge of doing that job. I don't know if I could ever do that job because, I'd like to be liked. There are people who are different in that way. Some people, no, they understand that. And they understand, look, they're going to be hated for certain things and they're going to make people mad or they're going to have to fire somebody or they're going to have to not renew somebody. And they can compartmentalize that. It's tough. You're never going to make everybody happy when you're involved in running a team, especially not a fan base. I'm not even talking about a fan base. I'm talking about people around you.
Yeah.
You can't because you have to separate yourself from it. You have to. If you're Darren Eales, if you're Carlos Bocanegra, you are the stewards of the club as a whole, not making this component happy to do something even though it's not the right decision for the long term. You're the stewards of this club, and you've got to make the tough decisions. And no, you're not going to make all of them 100% the way other people would tell you they would. It's just impossible. It's just impossible. You have to make the most decisions correctly as you can and try to judge the medium and the long term while putting the people in place to get the short term right. It is a very tough balance. It is a very tough balance.
Yeah, you're not going to make 100% of the people happy about the decisions that you make 100% of the time. That is a virtual business impossibility. And that's what you're doing. You're running a business, and in this case, we're talking about running a sports franchise that is part of the global footprint in its sport. And there will be times where decisions will be made, whether it's in the short term, that not everyone is going to like. But then with hindsight, you can look back X number of years down the line and look back at the decisions like we're talking about with the Bulls and all of our other examples this morning and say that was the right decision at that time as we look back on it. So that's what perspective gives us, is that opportunity to sit there and look at decisions that were made X number of years backwards and see how it applied itself to the hopeful success of what we're looking at when we're talking about other subjects. You're hoping that decisions that were made back then can lead you forward and continue the path that you wanted to be on at the time. And at the time, you're going to have decisions in the present tense that are going to ruffle feathers. That's just how it is.
Jason Nick says, but, and in parentheses, we need to hold the front office accountable when they do make mistakes. Yes, it happens, but call it out and have high standards. If we don't, this, quote, bold plan will never work in a league like this. It is working. It is working. You have an Open Cup. You have a MLS Cup. You have had a ton of success on and off the field. So the bold plan's working. They've done something that LAFC has not been able to accomplish. They've done something that Orlando and NYC have not been able to accomplish. I mean, go ask Cincinnati about their situation. Go ask Minnesota right now about their situation. Like, to say it's not working, I'm sorry, you're getting short-termism here. And that's the issue. And that's what I'm saying, Jason. It's not that if they make a mistake, it's like, oh, well, whatever. But you have to have perspective. And sometimes you can't make the right reactions, or you can't have the right reactions. You can't say a move is a bust immediately. Julian Gressel, for example. I will continue to say it. Getting Brooks Lennon, trading Gressel for the return you got, knowing what Gressel ended up getting in salary, at least what's been reported because it hasn't been published by the Players Association. You upgraded in that position with Brooks Lennon on less money in a cap league, that is critical. That is an upgrade. Everybody hated that move because they loved Julian Gressel and they loved what he brought to the table in this team. He would not fit in the current team. Brooks Lennon is a star in the current team. That move was panned initially, but over time, I think it's been proven out to be the correct move on all aspects of it. You know, you can go into the Nagbe one. And I know here it is put out there that Nagbe would have stayed if he had been offered more money beforehand. That's speculation, first off. If Darlington wanted to go on the record and say that, that's a different conversation. But that part is speculation. He wanted to go home by the time it came to that decision, to play for his former coach and to be closer to home. And he ultimately, according to reporting from Doug Robertson in that summer of 19, he did turn down offers by that stage. So, you know, wherever it fell apart, we don't know the full picture again here. But you have dealt with that. You got a huge return for him. And that return probably had a hand in bringing in Santiago Sosa, who is a more impactful player overall, in my opinion. I think he will be ultimately in a transfer fee as well coming into the team at some point. These things do happen, and it is difficult. And you had a bunch of players up at the same time, and you had to make a lot of tough decisions. Did you nail all of them? It's up for people to debate. A lot of people say no. There are some of those decisions that I think they ultimately did get correct, and to lump it all into one bucket is tough. Sometimes the holding accountable needs more time before you can actually do it. Go ahead.
Right, and I'll say this, that and Coco, I think, really nails it here, that a lot of the DP buy-down moves were able to happen because of the Nagbe deal, right? Because you ended up getting so much money back for Darlington Nagbe. There is a business component to this. It's not just win trophies at all costs. It is trying to be cash flow positive on these player transactions and not get underwater with it. You know, with Gressel, I understand. You know, Gressel did everything, all the signings around town. Mm-hmm. Gressel was always at him, shook hands with the kids, signed autographs, did all the right things. However, there were times in matches where Gressel would receive the ball, and then he would turn and he would lose the ball. Simple, stupid losses, right? He was pushed up further up the pitch. He was shielded behind with Franco and Nagbe, who could bail him out if he got into trouble. I think we're seeing a lot of stuff that has been cleaned up with Brooks Lennon on the side. You know, when Joseph is fully fit, healthy, and 100% going, I want to see the chemistry that can develop between the two of them before we can say, oh, well, I still wish we had Gressel out there. And I'm sorry, I'm just not the believer in Julian Gressel as the long-term, very expensive solution on the right side of the pitch. I just don't buy it. There are business decisions that must be made. And yes, it does seem that in the article that it appears toward the end that lessons have been learned, if you want to put it that way, and that Gabriel Heinze has a bit more play in the decision-making process. If you want to go by that, if you take the article at full value, right? And that's not saying that, that's making an assumption that the other side has had their full and willing say in the process. But I will say that I just think that you're going to get a lot of contracts coming to term at the same time because of when the signings took place. It was year 1, 2, and 3. The contracts are only for so long. A lot of these fan favorites were going to have cap issues that you're going to have to move on from.
What was something, Nick, that Carlos spoke about, I think at the beginning of 20, when some of those moves went down, and Coco kind of alludes to it too. You've got a huge amount of allocation money to start a team. You get a big bucket of monopoly money to start a team, and that runs out after a while. And players' contracts that you got on a manageable number, like a draft pick, like Gressel, okay, it's time to do a new contract. He's going to want more money. You don't have all that bucket of allocation money anymore. It's gone.
Correct.
So Carlos spoke on it, and I think it was lost in the shuffle of everything.
Yeah,
they went
because other things dominate the headlines.
Well, of course, but they went all in to win while they had Tata Martino in the first 2 years. they had to reload a little bit. And Coco talks about the reloading as part of the allocation money with the Gressel, with the Nagbe deals. The Nagbe deal, I mean, I was told from somebody not around Atlanta United, it was somebody who covers the league nationally, that move with all of the incentives after Columbus won MLS Cup last year was going to be the biggest trade in MLS history. So you got a huge return.
Right.
For a player that helped win you a cup.
1.4, I think, with incentives.
I think it ended up getting all the way to that or very close. So, this is part of running a team in a cap league, Nick. It is. It's something you have to think about. That's that medium and long-term thinking that somebody has to do. If the manager is the only one driving the player acquisitions, you're going to get caught in cap hell and not be able to win for a period of time until you fix it.
Right. And you can be like Milan, and you can keep your players, your star players, for too long. Championship winning guys who won Champions League a couple of times, and you keep them for too long, and then you don't set yourself up for the future. And when you could have had a year, 2 years maybe of some tough results, instead you put yourself behind by a decade. And this is where there's no salary cap, right? But you're stuck with these bad contracts. And the idea is to have players who overperform their contract to the point where you have to move them, where you buy low and they overperform and you have to make tough choices. That is the ideal situation. And so when you have Julian Gressel coming in and saying, I want stupid amounts of money to stay, he probably earned it. And Atlanta said, we can't pay you that much. Okay, well, I'm going to move on. Fantastic. We're going to orchestrate a move. We're going to get some cash in the process. Darlington Nagbe. Hey, guys, you guys slow-footed this contract extension that we were talking about upon the trade. I want to go home anyway. Let's, what's going to happen? Well, let's make the largest trade in league history and get a boatload of cash in the process. And yes, again, Coco, the Juve is a case study for keeping players for too long. So it's stupid money, Jason. And when we talk about Julian Gressel, compared to what he was earning, no, I don't think that he earned the level of TAM money that he was wanting, in my opinion. So I think we have a cheaper option now that can perform at the same rate in Brooks Lennon. And when Joseph is fully operational and healthy, I think that we will see the fruits of that. So in my opinion, we've seen time and time again where rosters get kept together for too long. And then it goes sideways and you set yourself back so far. But in the salary cap league, rough, tough decisions have to be made. And sometimes they're handled artfully and sometimes they're not. And yeah, Jason, you're right. Sometimes we do overpay for other guys. And that's a completely justifiable take. But
Jason Nix said that.
Jason Nix, sorry, yeah. So I would say that yes, we can, and that's a perfectly healthy, wonderful debate that we can have. But I will say that the idea of keeping these teams together for so long can become toxic over a period of time. And part of wisdom is learning how to handle things artfully. And wisdom is gained over time by making mistakes. And I'm sure that there are individuals on all sides of this who would like to have some of those moments back. They can't get them back. There's no DeLorean. There's no Doc Brown waiting at the Two Pines parking lot. So instead, what do we have to do? We have to learn from and make better decisions in the future. That's generally how I'm viewing this. But if you have to look around the league at teams that don't have stars over their crests, who we're suddenly looking at and saying, oh, look how they're doing things, look how they're doing things. There's a nice, pretty star above that logo. Should we have had two? Yeah, great. In the land of make-believe, yeah. But we were at least in contest for a second one. And I think that when you look at that and you look at the fact that we have a number of trophies outside of the 2020 blip, then I will say that I'm very happy with how the club's run. If that means that they're static behind the scenes and a couple of people willing to, go to fisticuffs to make it happen, hey, I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me at all. Yes, I am throwing out 80s film references, by the way. That's needed. Sometimes it's needed, man.
Any other questions we need to get to? I do need to cut it at 11 today. Got something I got to take care of here health-wise for somebody here, and we'll get it taken care of. So 11 o'clock's our hard out. We'll do a USL League One segment separate as a podcast, John and I, later today. But we got about 18 minutes to get final questions.
We're caught up on the Twitter side. What's going on Twitch?
Well, there's a bunch. It's kind of hoping you pick one.
I'll go with Jason. Because I think Jason's bringing some good
Okay,
points.
there you go. Thanks, Nick.
Certainly interacting here, so I definitely want to make sure that we move his stuff to up to the top of the pile here. Yeah, Jason says, hey, yes, I agree that I'm privy to not privy to all the money moves and need to make things need to happen. I'm coming from a very fan perspective, not hoisting the FO on a petard. Just want more. It's always good to want more.
Yeah,
and I will
that's the
always
vision statement.
Yeah.
Right. I will always lean toward fans saying, WT blank, why can't we keep these guys? Why do we make these decisions? We want to win. I will take that over any of the other towns around this league where it's kind of like, we're just going to try to get there and see what. No. I want people to demand more. And that's what happens in markets where winning is done. And that's because the fans don't sit back and let mediocrity occur. That blips are railed against. And 2020 was a massive, ugly, fat, red wine stain on the white dress, and we by all means, fans should yell and scream about that. You're the ones investing your money in season tickets. You're the ones investing in kits and all that. So yell and scream and do all that fun stuff. It's part of being a fan. But there are going to be people who will throw gasoline on that to try to get a reaction out of you for clicks and buzzes and whatnot. And there are going to be people who are going to who try to be more moderate. And there are going to be people who try to be, quote unquote, the sunshine world nonstop. And so you're going to find whichever group you want to find that best represents the world that you want to see. And that's fine. That's great. It's all part of the sports world. But I love the passion that a lot of you guys are bringing, saying why and asking the questions. Why can't we get this deal done? But I think part of it is also when the answers are given. My old boss used to say, "Well, that's been asked and answered."
Yeah.
What do we do from there? Well, a lot of these questions have been asked and answered. So now we have to say, what are we going to do moving forward with this? We're going to give Gabriel Heinze the time to move and develop and build something here. If you want Bielsa and you're mad about Bielsa, in my opinion, this is as close as you're going to get to a Bielsa-esque vision when it comes to youth development, when it comes to the tactical side of the game, when it comes to the energy and the passion that they bring, the level of preparation. This is as close as you're going to get without having Bielsa actually on the side.
And I said it before, and I guess I need to make it clear. Bielsa, in my opinion, would not have worked in this league. I do not know how the conversation was handled. All we know is what was written in the article today. I have no idea how it went down, but I do not think Marcelo Bielsa would have been a success in MLS. I don't know if he would have made it to day one opening day because of the way the league is structured. He is I want it this way, and that's what I want, and if I don't get it that way, I'm out the door. It's hard to do with a cap, and it's hard to do with allocation money and all the different mechanisms. I mean, we've seen it. How many teams have complained about, we thought we could bring this player in and do this, and then the league changed it on us. You got Miami have 4 designated players. There's so many different aspects to it that are difficult. I don't think that would have worked for him. Tata Martino, and this was something I was told when his name first came up, and it is talked about in the article, he is similar to that, but not as hard line. He takes a job with certain conditions. Gabriel Heinze talked about the same thing. When they say, we're going to work with you, this is the job we will take that you're offering to us, we want X, Y, and Z. And if we don't get X, Y, and Z, we're not going to take the job. Tata Martino took the job. Was it easy to get X, Y, and Z for him? No, it probably wasn't. But he also understood that he didn't know the MLS player group very well. Do you want to tell me now that Michael Parkhurst and Jeff Larentowicz were bad signings? Tata Martino didn't go sign those guys. And you can't pick and choose. You can't say, well, then that was somebody else. That wasn't Carlos Bocanegra. Carlos played with those guys. He knew what he was getting with those two. You can't pick and choose to shift it the way you want. That partnership worked for 2 years. Did it sour? Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time. That's what's said in the article, that it soured. It wouldn't be the first time. Again, like Nick said, Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause. Whew.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. Tata Martino also, and did he want to leave because of the relationship being soured? That's been alluded to in the article, but he also wanted to leave because he got offered a crazy amount of money from Mexico to work part-time at a national team.
Yep.
I mean, that factors into it too. You can say, well, okay, if that job hadn't materialized, then what? We don't know.
Right. So
That's
Tata's
Fantasyland.
wife did not live in the United States.
No.
From my understanding, she still lived down in Argentina.
She did, and he had grandkids down in Argentina, and he talked about that. Could there have been factors involved? Sure, but ultimately, he wanted to be able to be home more and be in Argentina, be home more. And he wasn't going to be able to do that running a team day-to-day. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
So could things have factored into the decision? Absolutely. But the ultimate decision, I don't think it would have worked long-term. He would have signed a longer deal to begin with. Gabriel Heinze signed a 2-year deal. That's the idea here, and we see what happens. But it's tough. And I think it's easy to, especially right now with everybody riled up because of a draw on the road, and I guess a start to the season that some find disappointing, that there's a huge issue and everything is broken. No, you're just getting the story. You're not hearing what's going on in Cincinnati. Right. You haven't heard what's gone on in other teams.
Clubs. There's always drama at big clubs.
Yeah, it's just part of it.
It's part of the business. But I will say that I if we want to have arguments over Kubo Torres versus John Gallagher, yes, amazing. Yes, let's have those conversations all day. But I will say that, to agree to your point, Jason, if you say, well, I wish Carlos had never come here. Well, great. Then Lorenowitz and
there's
Parker
a lot of
and
things
that
guys wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm let's say in the magical world I'm Darren Eales, and I look and Carlos has brought folks, hey, look, I think we need Michael Parkhurst, even though he's old. I think we need Jeff Lorenowitz. Yeah, he's old, but these guys provide leadership skill. They still have some gas in the tank. I think we can bring them in. And if he comes to me and says, I want to sign Kubo Torres, yeah, he's old. I think he has some gas in the tank. I'm probably going to err on the side of that and be like, this dude brought in the last captain of Atlanta United. Yeah, okay, all right, sure, yeah, we'll take a flyer on that. You can't just throw all the bad stuff out and expect to keep only the good things, because our universe doesn't work that way. So I applaud the reporting that Felipe's done. I'm not going to push back at any of it. I will say that I think that there's a bit of that the world can be a wild place, and that sometimes there are other things in play. And I will take a bit of drama at a club that is vying to be successful on a regular basis. That 2020 was an abomination. It was terrible. You move past that, and I think that we need to not let 2020 cloud what's happening now, because I'm thrilled with what's happening now with Heinze. I think it's going to grow into something amazing.
And Heinze wouldn't have taken the job if he didn't want to work with Carlos.
Yeah,
that's, I think, and he said it himself when they talked about the hire and he gave his first media availability. They talked. He did his due diligence. He took the job. And he's, so far, I think, getting everything he wants. He probably doesn't want to do as much media as he has to, but outside of that, that's league rules. There's only so much you can do. Different culture. He's getting what he wants. He took the job because he thought he could work with this front office. So if it's, we had this conversation months ago, if you feel like it's a bad front office, well, Gabriel Heinze, who was very in demand, chose it. If, you can't think he is the great young manager on the way up and then try to find a negative there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're not going to, if you're the great young coach, you're not going to take a job if you don't like the front office. You're not just going to take a job for the sake of a job.
In a country you've never been in.
Yeah.
In a country you've never played or worked in. That's an even bigger sale job, to take this job with this club and work with this group. Right.
And let's keep in mind that there were also stories circulating that Frank's wife had left the United States to go back to the Netherlands as well.
Yes.
And they were known to have a very close relationship. And so there are other things that factor in to all of this stuff. and it's not just black or white. That's the one thing we all learn in PTSD therapy, is that we all tend to believe that everything's black and white, when actually it's a world of gray. And so it's something where the mistakes can be made. They're going to be made because we don't have advanced deep learning artificial intelligence making picks left and right. But to say that it's all a disaster zone, I'm not remotely on
I just don't know how you get there with trophies in the case.
I don't know.
Money in the bank, trophies in the case.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get there. Now, if you want to buy into,
I'll take Ralph Rangnick in the drama. I'll take that.
His name came up, and it came up in the Twitch pitch, and yeah, he's hard to deal with, and he's won. How much has he really won? He's another guy who reminds me of Bielsa in that he's best with a smaller team with lower expectations and can get them punching above their weight. Can he win with a top team? We might find out if he actually takes one of the top teams that has talked to him. We don't know. Does he go to Milan? I mean, I don't even know if they're expected to win Serie A next year if he goes there. You know what I mean? Can he make that transition? He's a different kind of guy. You have guys who are brilliant managers who don't work well with others. Thomas Tuchel.
Tommy Tuchel. Yeah.
Tommy Tuchel. His name has come up, but he's found a way to navigate it to the point that he's getting those massive jobs. Go back and read some of the things about Tata Martino at Barcelona, because Barcelona people ran him out of town as fast as possible, and I thought unfairly, because he did try to make changes. He wasn't married to the idea of, I have to have 60% possession. He did try to find plan Bs and different ways to play, which was very against the way that they think about the game. So it wasn't a fit. Sometimes great people aren't a fit everywhere, because that AI that Nick talks about creating the perfect team and the perfect front office doesn't take into account personalities. And personalities are a big part of this. And you need that push-pull with personalities, with people who are not all yes men, but can find ways to work together to create good things. And it's hard to say over the entirety of what you've seen here is not good things.
Yeah, and AI does not deal in emotion. It deals with everything else but that when it comes to the construct.
Yeah. That's right. You're dealing with statistics and numbers and everything else. And what do we want from Atlanta United? We want to win trophies, and we want a steady youth pipeline, because that helps to defer costs in player acquisition. You can move those contracts on and make cash in the process. And sometimes you'll have a promising prospect who moves on as a result of that, but it's part of the system. And I appreciate what we're seeing with this as opposed to what we're seeing with some of the other clubs around MLS who are just like, we're going to put a team on the field and we're going to blow up our entire youth setup, Minnesota. And, they keep selling their supporters this whole thing of, we're going to slow grow to success. Well, fantastic. Good for you. But it doesn't seem to be really working out well. I'll take it. Hey, we're going to blow this whole thing up in order to get that trophy with the confetti and all that other mess in the process. I'll take that. I'll take it to be in the conversation and to have people like Lexi Lawless, who trolls you into oblivion for responses in social media engagement.
Wait, what?
I know, shocking as that may be. It's going to be it's going to be something where more teams are going to figure this out. We got to build a youth program. We have to have a style of play. We have to do these things. And they're going to make mistakes along the way as well. But I'll take this over Cincinnati. I'll take this over what's happening with Red Bulls. I'll take this over what's happening with DC United. I'll take this over what's happening with Miami. I'll take this over what's happening at Dallas, where they have nothing but a youth pipeline and not really a ton else to show for it. And I'll take this over what's happening with Vancouver or Montreal. Toronto, hey, look, man, they got a thing going up there. But for a while, Toronto was depleted uranium until they turned that thing around, right? Yeah. So
Seattle's name has come up in the Twitch pitch too.
Yeah, the Zombie Sounders.
And
right?
2000, well, not even the Zombie Sounders. Go back to just 2009 when they launched to 2016 when they were in MLS Cup for the first time and won it. They were good. They've made the playoffs every year.
Right.
But they kept running into a brick wall. A lot of times that brick wall is named Bruce Arena and the LA Galaxy.
Right.
And Siggy Schmid kept hitting his head up against that ceiling. And then they made changes, and they hit on the right group. And they're trying to keep that group together. They've done a good job so far. Brian Schmetzer, what did all we hear about last year at the end of the year? He wanted his new deal. And that was a lot of friction. Gonzalo Pineda nearly left. There's been various points over the years where people have called for Garth Lagerwey's head because that's part of the deal here. But they found a way.
And why do we call them Zombie Sounders, Jason? Why do we call them Zombie Sounders?
Because of 2016. Like, specifically because of 2016, where they were awful in the first half of the season. They had the DP slot. They were trying to get Nicolas Lodeiro in. And it so happened that they had a horrible loss in Kansas City. Siggy Schmid gets the axe. He gets fired. And as he's leaving the facility, Nico Lodeiro is signed and coming in. Siggy probably would have kept the job if Lodeiro had been signed and been in the team a couple weeks before. Nico Lodeiro and the bounce back from Siggy Schmid getting fired and Brian Schmetzer taking over as the longtime assistant, they rose from the dead at that point because they were dead and buried. And then
the key headline here is they were trash at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And
like
they came
trash, not with a win and 2 draws and a loss.
No.
Trash. Like trash.
Yeah.
Going to miss the playoffs for the first time ever. Trash.
Right. And they have been able to turn this into a thing. And so I will take our situation over a lot of other people's situations. And I'll go to the hilt on that one. And I make zero money from Atlanta United. I have yet to apply for a media pass. I think this weekend may be the first one where I actually do that. But I will say that it's important for us to look around this league and say, okay, where's everyone else at? Where are we at? Comparatively speaking, how are we feeling? Feeling very good about this. Training facilities, top flight. Youth pipelines there. We have an exciting style of play that's coming together. I just feel like it's something that, I'm okay with. And I'm happy to have these conversations, though. If you guys want to debate player for player, all that fun stuff, let's do it, baby. I love it. I think that's part of this whole thing that we embrace when we get behind a microphone and run our mouths. I love having those conversations. But the doom and gloom, the asteroid's going to hit the planet, and, we're all going to burn in a fiery inferno because, our XG from our center midfielders isn't exactly what it should be. Come on, I got to push back a bit on that one. And with that, I got to step out.
Yeah, and I have to too, before other people don't really understand what we're doing here and want to take more shots. That's fine. This isn't easy, guys. This isn't easy to be in this situation, and I don't have to really say more than that. I think people who know understand what I'm saying here. If you don't, you don't want to. This sucks when these kinds of stories come out. They're difficult. They're also, again, from one perspective, from many different people, but from one side of the conversation. It's very awkward to deal with this. We did as best as we can. And if that's not good enough for some, that's fine. Other people can cover this in the way that they want to cover it. We're doing the best we can with the situation. I think we presented a lot of different voices fairly. We gave you our perspectives. Disagree. That's completely fine. Nobody's on the same page 100% of the time. But I hope people are fair about that. And as you start to learn, the more you do this, there are a lot of people who choose not to be. They say they are. They choose not to be. That sucks. But that's also part of the gig, and that's something that I'm sure Carlos Bocanegra is not happy about right now. But it's part of the gig that you sign up for. I'm not happy about it when people take things out of context and try to spread rumors and lies about things I say on this show without in any way thinking of the big picture. But that's fine. It sucks. Don't get me wrong. It sucks. But it's part of the deal. This is look, it's a tough conversation to have. I think we did it the best we could in the most fair way we could. I'm sure it will continue to come up. That's where we're at. If we didn't meet your expectations, hey, sorry about that. We do the best we can around here. We'll try to do it again tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be as good as we can be, and hopefully people will be happy with it. But we'll be back tomorrow to talk about more of this stuff. We'll do top tier stuff another time. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Much plot, y'all.
Much plot, y'all.